So here we are. We are at this point at the northwestern point on the perimeter where the Utrechtseweg meets with the Sonnenberglaan, a ride heading up through what at the time was parkland. The flats and houses across to my front were not there at the time, and this was open parkland. But at this point was where a 17-pounder gun was placed under the command of Sergeant Nobby G. And down this ride came French Charbis converted by the Germans into Flampanzers to try and attack the perimeter, and one of which was knocked out just 100 yards up there. This point on the perimeter at the time we're modelling it was largely held by the Border Regiment, which had come in as an air landing unit and consequently was relatively intact. And here we had Germans pushing down in that direction from the direction of Wolfhazer, where the Germans had done such a sterling job in holding up the paras on day one of the attack. This table's unusual of the three that it's much more open. We've got parkland, we've got some large houses which we'll see over there, and we've got this fabulous gatehouse behind me which we've represented on the table. So the action here is going to be much more about troops dug in, attempting to repel German advances, as opposed to the house-to-house fighting that we're seeing on the other two tables.
So now the boot's on the other foot. I'm here. This is Richard Clark, well-known international celebrity wargamer. Rich, you've made table number 3, the table we're calling number 3. Tell us about it.
Perfect table for me. There's hardly anything on it. It was really, and the great news
That's why
was,
we gave it to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I only started building it about 10 days ago, which was a bit alarming. Yeah, really, we're looking at the point where the Utrechtseweg meets the ride that goes up through the park there. And at that point in time, and obviously what we're representing on the table is large parkland, but we've also got that little, I call it the gingerbread house. It's that little gateway house, the type of thing you might get on as a gateway for a large big posh house estate. That's very iconic there, so we've modelled that. And across the road on the Utrechtseweg we've modelled very large semi-detached property, 2 beautiful suburban villas which were there at the time, and that really with their extensive gardens and outbuildings, and that creates the feel for that edge of town. And this is the point very much at the northwestern perimeter where they're running into the Germans attacking there with Flampanzers and the old French tanks. So it was very important there to try and capture the feel of the open space in the parkland. And to be fair, Alan's got some fabulous trees which we've used for that ride going up. What's that ride called, Nick? Sonnenberglaan, that's right, completely went out of my head there. So we've got the Sonnenberglaan there with the ride, we've got the open ground, and we've got those big houses which really look like, you know, a rich merchant or a well-to-do person would be living in, with beautifully manicured gardens. And across the way we've got that fabulous little gingerbread house with, again, its beautiful planting out the front, which really gives a feel for a well-kept attractive area. Des res is what I'm thinking. Location. So who would live in a house like this?
Well, they're interesting, aren't they? Because those properties are both still there.
Yeah.
But of course it's looking at them and then saying what was there in 1944 and what's been added since. So you've got to do a bit of forensics to try and work out what they look like. And also a bit of, I guess, artistic license.
Yeah, it's interesting. We've got the aerial photographs then. We've also used Google Earth, because those houses have been quite extensively extended extended, especially to the rear. Great news is Google Earth goes back about 25 years, and 25 years ago those houses hadn't been extended and looked exactly the same as they were in 1944. So we've been able to work out exactly what's new and what isn't. But it's really once again a case of trying to capture the feel of the table, and so people can come in and go, hey, I recognise that house, I recognise that building, but it's not a perfect scale representation. It's a representation rather than a precise scale model.
And that table actually throws light on a challenge that we had. It's worth reflecting on this, because actually we had quite a lot of discussion amongst the development group about this one tiny aspect, which I guess kind of shines light to some of the detail that we were potentially thinking about. Was you've got a different road on that table, because somewhere between the crossroads at the MDS, crossroads at the MDS is cobbled with tram lines, etc. And yet when you see the photos of out west there, which is only about 400 yards the other way, you've got a what looks like completely a different road surface. So you know, we've tried to go down to you've gone for asphalt basically on that piece of road.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's been a case of poring over the photographs to try and work out what type of road surface we're talking about.
Not that it makes any difference to the game.
It won't make any difference to the game, but it makes a lot of difference in terms of capturing the feel of that area. So this is out of town. The road surface is a bit different to the inner town. Just when you're in the town, where you've got that in some areas cobbles, and some areas that lovely herringbone brick paving that's in there. So yeah, it's been about attention to detail, but also trying to capture the feel and hopefully present something that people who come to the museum are going to go, wow, that's not what I expected at all, and this is a beautiful representation, and they can get the feel for the area where the fighting took place, and hopefully roll some dice and have a go. We'll find out.